So this is a talk between Connie and myself. We I don't know if we decided or we decided to introduce each other rather than have David or Janelle have to do that. I think mine's pretty good about you, so I'm going to go first. Uh, you ready? Okay. Conny Purtill is an artist and book designer of extraordinary talent. Connie has been designing books under the moniker of Purtill Family Business for 25 years, and most people in this room probably live with multiple books he has designed for artists, galleries, and museums. Some recent titles include David Hammond's, published by Hauser and Wirth. That's a big one. The Ruth Asawa catalog for the show that just opened at SF MoMA. A beautiful Gertrude Abercrombie book for Colby Museum. And a large ceramic survey book of the work of Viola Frey with the Foundation, edited by Janelle. His practice as a visual artist runs parallel to his design practice and involves the focused and accumulated labor of drawings towards beautifully realized images, patterns, and glyphs. These drawings are always performed on very specific supports: the pages of collected books, found vintage papers, and carefully prepared canvas surfaces. His project, The Ground, is an ongoing platform in which Connie collaborates with invited artists and friends towards exhibitions and events within which his own discrete works also appear. In recent years, Connie's drawings have evolved or expanded into more sculptural territory through the creation of small kite structures he builds from bamboo, paper, and braided string. Some fun facts about Connie. These are all true. Connie grew 12 inches taller in his final year at high school in Greeley, Colorado. He secured an early job as a graphic designer in New York at Abelson after writing the owner a letter in which he accused said owner of cutting him off on his bicycle, sustaining damage to the bike. After the first paragraph, which assured the reader's attention, Connie went on to explain that he was just kidding and he was actually a young design graduate seeking a position, and he got the job. When Connie worked at the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis, part of the dress code in the office denied workers the option of wearing shorts as they were deemed too casual. Connie's response was to integrate pencil skirts as a consistent part of his work attire during warmer months. Connie ran his best marathon time in Las Vegas when he was 38 years old, running 3 hours and 4 minutes. That's 7-minute miles. In doing so, he matched the family record achieved by his uncle, also at the age of 38 and in Las Vegas. His uncle was there to witness the race. I still can't believe that. Connie once secured the design contract for a major museum catalog after submitting only a typeset caption for one of the artist's works. I hope this is true. Frustrated at the process of being asked to develop and submit a design sketch at time and expense that is often not paid for, Connie felt that the caption alone would express his commitment to the project. Connie does not talk to strangers on airplanes. If engaged, he politely relays, "I'm sorry you don't talk to strangers on airplanes." That's it.
All of that is true. Okay. As Ricky said, my name is Conny Purtill. I am the book designer involved in making Ricky's most recent book in collaboration with Ricky. It's called Components. It's available at Kordansky. Hello.
You're silent, though. I think we can all hear.
Hello. Hello. I just, I'm mic shy. Okay, so the introduction. An introduction like this feels a little bit absurd to me, just because everyone knows Ricky so well, and probably most of you have the classic "No More Ricky Jobs" stories that you can share. But if you don't know him, here we go. Ricky is a child of the 70s, Melbourne. He's 50% Mauritian and 100% Australian. Although he's lived in LA since, I think, 2006, maybe? 2002. But you were in London from 4 to 5? Yeah, okay. He's best known as a sculptor of menacing high fidelity. He did represent Australia in the Venice Biennale in 2005. He's a husband and father. He's a curator. He's a book designer of extraordinary detail. He is, for real, no more Ricky jobs. He's a producer of world-class elementary school Halloween environments, which are not to be missed, like really kind of like you shouldn't miss it. He's a tennis player, may have some shortcomings with his ground strokes and volleys and maybe overheads. But what his shortcomings are made up for with heart and hustle. He's a connoisseur. This is maybe the most critical element. The difference between someone with good taste and someone with great taste is that someone with good taste has their taste limit the things that are available to them. Someone with great taste, all the limits kind of dissolve. And Ricky, who we all know has extraordinary taste, in fact does have access to just about everything in the world. And not only that, he will go down every single one of those rabbit holes. Here are just a few things, starting with things relevant to today. Artist monographs, records, cassette tapes, posters, announcements, business cards. He just got a really sweet business card on Thursday night, I believe, from this fair. Dad hats and canvas bags, donuts, photographs of donuts, drawings of donuts, sculptures of donuts. Hacky sacks. I don't know if you all know this, but he is a co-founder of a currently existing hacky sack club called Sack Rats.
Only 3 members a year.
He's taken deep dives into exterior lighting, keychains, backpacks, doors and windows, tableware, wood grain. He's unparalleled in his ability to note really beautiful wood grain. Bronze patinas, the color and mineral turquoise, bookends, and paper. You guys would be surprised to know how much he's into paper. And then lastly, dance moves. Dance moves make me just want to hug him. Speaking of hugs, my wife Janelle claims that every husband deserves a husband of their own. And she often refers to Ricky as my deserved husband. But that's not true. We're just 2 men who like books and donuts and printing, sometimes swag, sometimes ephemera. There will be stuff for sale after this. Who have somehow miraculously found each other. Yeah, maybe Janelle's right. Okay, so the last thing, this is the end of the introduction. The most important thing, truly, is that Ricky is hysterical. He's a hysterical person. I'll end this introduction with a quick anecdote, or maybe it's more like a factoid, that I believe none of you know, except maybe Leslie. This will give you some insight. The writer B.J. Novak, who was one of the writers on the American version of The Office, he's often sort of given credit for the reintroduction of the joke, "That's what she said," has claimed the first place he heard this joke was in a London party in 2005, and he gives credit to the person at that party as, yes, you guessed it, Ricky Swallow. True story. Okay, so that's the introduction. Okay.
That made me really happy, Connie. Thank you.
Good.
So now that the introduction's over and you know everything about us, we do have a format of sorts, even though this is a pretty casual conversation, and we welcome questions, not just at the end, but throughout. You can just yell a question or speak loudly and ask one of it. But was to establish, like, we're going to try to run out of time before we talk about this little book I made with Connie. We're going to try to fill up the whole hour with other stuff, but one of the things that's interesting, the important context for this is that Connie and I meet every Friday morning at Bob's Donuts at the original Third Street Farmers Market. And we were introduced by Amy Adams, who's Connie's gallerist in Portland, and someone I'd known through just art circles. And she was like, how have you not met Connie yet? He's been in LA for a year. You guys got to just hang out. So we hung out, and then we decided, I think you were like, we should go do donuts. So I think we're in our 9th year of donuts every Friday, and I try to calculate how many donuts that was, but I got scared. So it's called Donuts, which comes from a Bob sign, right? That's where it came from. We didn't invent it. So dough, full traditional spelling of dough, not just D-O, Donuts. Donuts is a sort of platform for friendship and discussions of design, art, and I mean, I say that humorously, but we do often bring in books that we've just forgotten to show the other person, or if Connie goes on a trip, or if I go on a trip, or if I came to the fair on Thursday, on the Friday morning, I will bring those recent books, and we will talk about them and look at them and interrogate their successes and failures. And since in the 9 years that we've been doing this, we haven't really made a book as such, but we've made some brochures together, we've made some posters, other things. But the other thing we make every year is an annual gift to each other, which is sort of like a private version of ephemera, I guess. Do we want to run through them? Are they in sequence or not? Yeah, I think can't we click through them? Because some of them are like more interesting than the book, I think. That's a very good question, young lady. Connie's a runner, as you know from the introduction, and I would say tennis has replaced running, but it might be some form of metabolism that's within us. But we also, when we first started going to donuts, we would have like 4 or 5 and split them. Now I ordinarily have 2, so that's one donut split. You split them in half. But no, but I will say that we actually invented a donut at Donuts that came from Kathy's Midwestern request. Like, remember when you were like, do you ever go to Bob's and just ask them to toss like cinnamon on the cake donut? And I was like, can you do that? And you're like, yeah, I do it all the time. So it's a version of maybe a Midwestern donut. So we started requesting it every Friday, and because we spend a lot of money there and they take us seriously, it became a menu item. So I think of it as our donut, but it's actually your donut. Thank you. So this was year 1. This was a Donuts hat, and this is a double swag shot because Connie's also wearing the addition of 2 5-year sweatshirt, and one is in turquoise, one is in black. Next, Connie. No one's seen this stuff. This is rare stuff. This is not one I'm proud of, but there's some good photographs on here, and I think we got the amount of years wrong on this one because it's confusing us.
Spacing problem.
No kerning. No one designed it, right? And then we have. Connie went to Japan for his 50th birthday, and he brought back 2 Japanese-made corduroy caps, and I guess it was the 3rd year of Donuts, so it couldn't fit the entire thing on, but he did hand embroider these. And then these are the pencils. So we got really into the donut holes, so this was year of the hole. And then when COVID started, they actually stopped making the donut holes, and they've only, for a good 4.5 years, they stopped making them. So I think of this piece of merchandise as also kind of like creating the pause, the halting of the. This is 2004, 4 years. Do we have a shot of the back of this? Yeah. So we actually asked Bob, we were like, hey, we want to make some T-shirts just for us. We would just make 50. It's just for us, and anybody that comes to Donuts could get one. We love your logo. We love your donuts. And do you mind if we did it? We wouldn't sell them. We would just give them to friends. And Bob was like, yeah, I do not like the sound of this. I don't know. That's complicated. I would have to run it by my partners, my board. So we just did it anyway. But the rule about the T-shirt is that you can't wear it to Bob's. Even if you receive it, you can't wear it there.
You should mention the special guest, the friends.
We-
Fill us in.
Yeah, so very occasionally, there's a very rare invitation. I don't want to give people the impression that it's just an open platform. But we do have guests at Donuts. We get there at 7:30. Guests generally are invited at 8 or 8:30. And it's an informal, one of the informal sort of parameters is that guest is supposed to bring like a book or books to show us. Like you got to show up with something that like warrants your participation. And once a year we do a Plus Wives donuts. And I think we're overdue for that. This was a year, I think this was the 5th year of donuts, and I had an incident in the studio where I felt unsafe one night, and people were, out the front, and then they asked me a weird question, and I think it was relayed to Conny at the time. So he got a baseball bat and stripped it of the detail, the painted detail, sanded it back, and punched this in with a nail, and on the back is the year 5. This is probably my favorite donut souvenir, year marker. Yeah. Saw that one. Never. It's never happened. I mean, could be in the mood for a different donut, or maybe like half one, save the rest for later. But and also at one point they stopped having the knives, the plastic knives. So I made us a knife each one year, as our custom donut knives to bring to the studio. So this is a bronze cast shaker peg, and Connie's is a piece of bronze cast rope. Those are, and okay, this is a good one, because Connie's sister had made him a beanie that I was admiring, and he asked her to knit another one, and then on the inside of the donut, of the beanie are the year markers for how many years of donuts it is. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7-year anniversary gift. Really cozy. And I think that's all I got for that. So now we're just gonna let the donut slideshow play itself out. If you see any donuts you don't recognize, you want a little more information on the specific ones, you feel free to ask. But the other thing that I'll say is great about meeting at Bob's is that all the tables are different colors. So we take these photos over the years, and I feel like the color of the tables really makes them quite beautiful. But it's one of LA's. It's a real holdout location, and I wouldn't say it's just like a location. It's very much like an environment and a social environment. And when we're sitting there, we're often seeing other regular groups of people that show up on Friday morning. So there's a table of comedians and actors, some of them quite recognizable, that meet there. There's I think there's different versions of religious meetings and like AA-type meetings upstairs in these meeting rooms. It really feels like, beyond the commerce of it, it feels like a generous, social place to meet. And it's very folksy in the design of all the stalls of the individual stores. But it's a special place.
It is.
So, do we want to? Where do you want to go from this? You want to talk about the book? You want to introduce? Okay. So, as part of talking about this small book that Conny really designed it. It's nice that I get to say design in collaboration with Conny. I feel like I'm more, in terms of design, I'm more of like a dictator than a designer. Like I have parameters and specific things that I wanted, but Conny is really, the designer. So when Dave Kordansky said, hey, we should do a book for your show, I knew I wanted to do a small book, and I think it's because there's often some expectation if you do a book, you should try to make the biggest book you can within the budget, or that if you make, I don't know, I just wanted to make something that was portable and something you could take with you easily. And I started thinking about other books that we've both actually looked at it probably different times at Donuts, not in regards even to making a book, but I think the proposal of a small book is really pretty specific, especially for sculpture. Like you don't think about the idea of sculpture and small books. And one book that everybody should own, and if you can't own the original of it, it's great because Moose Publishing reprinted it, is this book by Robert Overby. It's kind of it's often just referred to as, the Overby Red Book. So, and it's Robert Overby, 33621, August 1973, July 1969. And from what I understand, it's not a catalog to any exhibition. It's basically like Overby himself was and this is another good parallel because, like you, he was a fully fledged artist and a designer and a working designer. He famously designed. This is a big admin reveal, and if there's any TRD fans out there, they're gonna flip on this. But
We have no idea what you're saying.
Robert Overby famously designed this Toyota logo, a lockup, for example. And I would say it's arguably the most recognizable Toyota font. And it's crazy to me that a sort of conceptual sculptor or painter is responsible for that and also responsible for the kind of idiosyncratic decisions and stuff that happens in this book. The thing that's great about this book is that it's almost like an overview of it is an overview of everything he made in this 4-year period. But maybe I'll pass it around for people to look at because it has some of the works are reproduced so small and there's a real rhythm to the book. Like this will give you an example, like one full page and then a tiny page, but it's such a musical book if you flick through it the way, Janelle, can you share that and lock the doors and share that book? But yeah, it's a book that I felt like we kept cycling back to a lot. And when we were trying to determine a scale for this, there was 2 books that we had reviewed or looked at a lot that we loved. One was Overby, and the other one was this Vincent Fecteau book, which is a catalog to a show. Vincent Fecteau, who is a sculptor based in San Francisco, who studied art, I believe at UCLA here, is a peer of people like Trisha Donnelly, Evan Holloway. We love the Fecteau book as well because it's so specific in its size, but also there's a really heavy varnish on the images, and it's also not images of what I think most people would want to see in a Vincent Fecteau book, which is his sculptures. He chose to make something between a catalog and an artist book, and it basically depicts his collages, which were also in the show. But
Right. So just really quickly.
I'm going too far.
I think so.
Going too-
The original plan was that Ricky would present, just introduce a book, and then I would, and we would go back and forth and talk specifically about them. Maybe do you want to keep doing that, or do you want to do that?
No. Let's stay on the Red Book. I want to
Okay.
hear because I want to hear what you have to say about the Overby Red Book.
The Red Book, to me, the strength of the Red Book is in its structure and its format. There are very few design decisions in that book. He set up a set of parameters in the beginning and just let them play out as they would. I think it's one of the real strengths of that book, and it's why it's so musical.
Yeah.
And it's why those parameters that he set up in the beginning are why the book functions so well.
Could you
and
talk
that's
more about the parameters?
Yeah, I think with that book, the parameters are the caption always appears in the same place. The images also always reproduce at a certain scale.
Yeah.
The images are located on the page in a certain place always. Sometimes it goes into 2 spreads. I'm not really
Is it
remembering,
good
but
design or is it bad design? Was that not the right question to
No,
ask about
it's-
this book?
It's great design. It's great design. It's design that only requires a few decisions, but it's great design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of other artists that really sort of covet this book or refer to it. There is an artist whose name I'm spacing out on, but who actually reproduced the book in facsimile with their own reproductions of their own work in the same templates. But I think there's a real freedom in the book, and maybe that's because it's Overby's work, it's his design, and he just no one was telling him how to do it or what the expectation or the outcome would be.
Yep. Yeah.
You seeing that?
And I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I think it's similar to the book that we made together. There are a certain set of parameters that we set up and let it play out, basically.
What little pocket book did you bring that you want to talk about, Connie?
The first book I want to talk about is this Gideon's Bible, New Testament. Yeah. So I'm just going to talk.
Are you going to do a reading from it?
I'm going to do a little reading from it.
Okay.
So this book is not the exact book I have. I got a green one when I was in elementary school. This book is from the 70s, from that period of time, and it's the exact same thing. It's like
Where did you get this a replacement as
I
such?
got this on the internet.
Okay.
I don't know where.
Did you get it leading up to this talk, or at some point in your life did you want a replacement of the one from China?
This talk.
Yeah.
No, I don't think about the Bible that often. But in this case, this book, in my memory, is like it's the first book that I ever had that was like my own. It was a book that I really loved. I loved holding it.
Where did you get it from?
I got it from my church.
Yeah.
I grew up in a small town in Colorado, and church was a thing.
Was it considered like a special thing that you got it, or did everyone get it at a certain time of the year?
Everyone got them pretty much whenever they wanted, but I remember like my pastor gave me one, and it was like, okay, this is my first book, and it was like my first book. And I was mentioning to my little brother, like, I might be doing a talk on small books, and is there any small books that you think of? And the first thing he said was the same thing. He said, Gideon's Bible. I still have it. It's like the first book I ever had. And so it wasn't just me, but this book also, it's like there's some things in here that I think are interesting in relation to a small book, which I'm going to read. Okay. So, oh yeah, I can do this. It is the traveler's map, the pilgrim's staff, the pilot's compass. This is like the first thing in this book. The soldier's sword. Here paradise restored, heaven opened, the gates of hell disclosed. This is amazing. This book should fill the memory, rule the heart, and guide the feet. Read it slowly, frequently, and prayerfully. It is a mine of wealth, a paradise of glory, and a river of pleasure. It's given to you in life, will open doors at the judgment. I am not preaching to you right now, I promise you. I feel like I am, because it's very convincing, but a paradise of glory and a river of pleasure. It's given in life, it will be opened at the judgment and be remembered forever. It involves the highest responsibility, will reward the greatest labor, and will condemn all who trifle with its sacred contents.
It's basically the internet.
It's basically your book.
Fuck.
It's like, to me, it's like, this is my introduction to like books, like small books. It's like, you got to respect it. You got to like, and going back to read that was like, oh, fuck, right? Of course.
Well, I feel like every time you see a version of the Bible that's that small, it really looks like somebody's wallet that they have carried around and like used as, what is it, like your feet, your compass, your sword, your like.
Yeah.
It's a very like, with a small book, like you can have that kind of relationship with it. And I think we went really heavy on the varnish with this book because we kind of wanted it to be thrown around and taken places, and it was okay if it was a good idea for it to be able to take like a bit of a beating by whoever ended up with it, maybe.
Yeah,
you know.
I think that's the hope, that it gets a beating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone that wants to beat the book later, come on,
So,
beat it.
so the tool, the small book as a tool.
Small book as tool, yeah.
What's next for you?
Next for me is this little book, and Connie likes to. I think you wanted more rules around this talk than me, and that's good. That's really good.
That's
because
possible.
one of us had to do that. But so this book is, although I think of it as sort of an artist book, it's not really an artist book. It is a book that reproduces works. You know what? Let's hand this around too, so that people can see what we're talking about. It is a book that reproduces works from a show I did in New York at David Kordansky 2024 in March. And the other thing I'll say about that show was a little bit of a survey for me where I got to dig into my own archive and include things. So it wasn't like I just built a show of all new works. So in that way, it sort of maps the show, which, David gave me a lot of freedom to do. And I wanted to sort of account for my practice a little bit in a broader way and allow sort of weirder things to be shown, allow these smaller sculptures which make up one work, and they're sort of between test sculptures and samples and parts of sculptures. But yeah, so Conny wanted this talk he wanted to limit the books we talked about to be more like catalogs as opposed to artist books, because once you get into artist books, you're looking at more of like a very singular project. Sometimes it has very different arteries than just the practice itself. But this is a book by Steve McQueen called, would you say Barrage? Yeah. Barrage, yeah. And it's important to me, and I think it was a show actually, but Steve McQueen is just an amazing art filmmaker and now major motion picture maker. And I think I got this when I first traveled to London and other parts of the world in 2000 from Australia. I was sort of drunk on books because at that time in Australia, you wouldn't see the kind of deep variety of books that you would see at the Serpentine bookstore or the Tate bookstore or some of these small booksellers in London. And I'd seen a show at the Sir John Soane House of Steve McQueen's, and he'd sort of made interventions into that very colonial space. One of the things that I remember was walking into a room, and it was his sound piece. So it was just like African drumming from speakers that were obscured in this room with all these sort of like colonial architectural artifacts. But I think I got this book from the little bookstore as part of that show. So it's just Steve McQueen photographing makeshift things that people put in the gutters I think they're all in the UK, it could also be in Paris. It looks very British. So when people roll up pieces of carpet and wrap them in twine and put them in front of a gutter to stop the flow of water or redirect the flow of water, he took images of them very casually, and you can kind of see, I don't know if you could see the composition, but they're really beautiful, evocative photos, and it felt very personal to me. And most of the books that I was buying on that trip, I was then every couple of weeks putting them into a box and shipping them very slowly back to Australia. But this was one, because of its size, that I could, it stayed with me on the whole trip. So it's a book, I remember its portability, I remember its content, but I also, it's evocative for me of that trip. And sort of, when I say that trip, like the sort of availability of books and like actually maybe becoming someone who quote unquote like collected books.
No heavy lamb on that.
No heavy lamb, but again, I think there's we did look at this book. It has a dust jacket, a really thin dust jacket, which is probably C1S or not. It's not C1S. It's
No, that's just coated. That's just coated.
It's a very very light dust jacket. So again, I think it's intended to kind of like, be freighted with the age of the user, or like receive all kinds of
I'm sorry I put those parameters on you, because that book is a catalog and sort of an artist book.
It's a shapeshifter between those zones. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you got next, Connie? Where are we going?
Also not a catalog.
Okay.
Okay, so this book, I need to sort of like, I guess I have to kind of like,
Pull your pants.
it's like, this book is very special. It's the collected writings of Willem McKiernan, produced by Hunaman, I think that's how you say it, Hanneman Books, yeah. They made a bunch of little tiny books like this. This one is the first one I bought. I have just a few.
What was that?
That is the top of Donald Rumsfeld's head. It's a bookmark.
Okay. Did you cut it off? Wait, no. Go into that. Is it made by you, or was it in the?
No,
You
it's
trim?
made by me. It's like a remnant of something else. It's
Okay.
really important.
Okay.
This is so small. And so, like, I find myself usually holding it with two hands like this, a little bit like Trump with a water glass. I feel like it's always like pretty close to my face. My nose is in it. I read phrases from it pretty consistently. The object itself, it's like when I'm reading it, I almost hear it like a whisper a little bit. It's never like shouting, even though he's kind of a shouter. It's like it feels very precise. The writing feels precise because, the sentences are like, four words. The lines are like 4 words long. It's like, the kind of like that whisper, the precise whisper is like something that this book sort of projects onto me, which I really love, and something that I don't think big books are capable of doing, mostly because I don't find myself like in this position with big books very often. I guess that's all I'm gonna say about this one.
Could I prompt you to talk a little bit about this series of books and where they were printed? Because if my understanding is that they were printed in India at like a place that normally makes prayer books. So this could be your second prayer book that you're.
That is true. They are printed in India. I didn't know about the prayer books.
Yeah.
It's actually hard to find information about this publisher.
Because it's not in the colophon, but.
Yeah.
But that they take on a format that existed, from what I believe, right? Like with the gold writing and.
Yep.
Are you saying that the printers would casually redesign it, or? Yeah. Do you know, Spencer, do you know how many books are in the series? Yeah. And some of them there's certain ones are very collectible, but they used to be sort of around, like I remember going into Printed Matter and there would be like a bunch of them, and then. Do you have a lot of these books? Yeah. Do you mean like did they get permission from? I don't imagine they did. I think they just made them, right? Like key style, they just went with it. But when I think about those little books in that series, they're also what you're describing is cool because it's like the scale, the experience of the book is changing, like your posture, your experience of it, and how you handle it. But I think of those books as like requiring a sort of delicacy because I worry that they might like chip at the spine, or like their preciousness is sort of also important, maybe, I don't know. But they're not overly precious, but they,
I think the size does sort of require a kind of.
Yeah. It's like a truffle, you got to wash it the right way, right? You got to just. So maybe we have time for like one more book each before we get into this book. Yeah. So I guess I did Overby, I did Steve McQueen. I have 2 books to choose from, and I think I'm going to talk about this book because it's not a super old book, but you can actually, this is not a promo spot, but you can buy a version of this book downstairs by Dent de Leon. It's a book by Martino Gamper, who's I would describe him as an artist, furniture maker, designer. And he made this book, 100 Chairs in 100 Days in 100 Ways. And it's a really popular book. This is a second edition, but every time they print the book, they change the scale. So the first one was quite small. The first one was probably closer in scale to the Overby book that's floating around. This is the second one. I think there's a really tall one. And the latest edition, which is down on their stand, which I feel compelled to buy, I feel like it's returned back to a squattier scale. But I think it's just a really, other than like loving Martino's sense of like messing his, again, it's sort of a freedom with which he deconstructs and builds and makes furniture. But I don't know, I think this project started out as a very like personal thing. It took on its own steam and became very talked about and published and revisited. But I can only imagine that between Martino and the publisher, there's just, it seems like a really clear, it's presenting the material in such a clear and concise way that feels also personal, and decisions are made. Like, this is a little bit crazy for me, but if you know Martino's work, sometimes he'll use formica of different kinds that it's like really tightly laminated on tables. So there's, when I look at this book, and I don't know Martino that well. He married a friend of ours, and we've met him a few times, and he's a super, smart and funny, interesting guy. But I feel like when I'm looking at this book, I feel like I'm looking at like a version of the artist in print, and not just the work, but like how the artist thinks about things, like how they think about putting this page together. I think is really, with these two circle overlay reproductions, I think of that as very similar maybe to how Martino might like put a tabletop together or marry different, pieces of furniture together. I don't know if the design, I know they have a table downstairs, but I think he works closely with the designer because he's made a few books with them, and they're all friends and part of this newer school of like London designers. I can't remember what this is, this part that comes out, but I guess it's just because it's the pages continuing, but it's also a bit of a promo spot for other books the publishers have made. But yeah, it's an example of like a contemporary book that's really like leaning into more playful design, but to me it never gets cute. It kind of feels like good, and it feels direct and a good representation of the artist's practice.
I don't own that book.
You should go, after this, we're all going to go downstairs and buy a copy of it, okay?
My last book, really fast. So actually, we have 10 minutes. Really fast?
Yeah, that one's an important one.
Okay. This is a book published by Matthew Marks. It's a show, an exhibition catalog for a show that Charlie Ray curated at Matthew Marks, or organized, maybe, is actually, but curated maybe. Organized. And this book is a catalog and also an essay. And just as the book is a catalog and an essay, I also think the show was a show and an essay. And I'm not sure that Charlie would even really argue that, because the essay he writes is quite descriptive, and he's using the works in the show really as an argument for the for what he's talking about, which is space and time. I'm going to put the mic down for a second. Okay.
Let's see some favorite spreads.
Yeah, okay, well, it's really important actually to sort of just flip through each spread, because this book, it's about space and time. And the book itself was designed by, let me get this right, Sylvia Gaspardo Moro, who is his partner now. And it's like a 24-page book, hardcover. It's got a dust jacket that's got a kind of, it's a drawing of a sculpture, but made quite flat, printed on, obviously, vellum. And then you look through this, so it's flat, but it's also a window or a filter
Is the drawing by Ray?
It's not clear. It's not, there's no caption or anything.
Kind of looks like something he would do, right?
It does. It looks like he made a drawing of a sculpture maybe by Caro.
Yeah.
Possibly. But I don't know. Okay, and so this is the book. Get in here. Title page. The thing that's really beautiful to me about this book is the way that I think Charlie and Sylvia probably made many of these decisions together. It's just how I imagine it went down, but I don't know. But you'll notice that there will be horizon lines in the book that are moving constantly. Some might say they're mistakes, some might not say they're mistakes. I choose to believe they're probably not, but so you can see this is a blank page. This is sorry, there's something here, but it's not supposed to be there. So immediately the book is set up with a horizon that exists, and that horizon will sort of play out in the text constantly. It's the same exact spot. And then on this page, you'll see that it's like a really super comfortable version of how an image might appear. They repeat this. And then suddenly the images get small, and you start to feel a kind of compression onto the image. With these images specifically, he's talking about, when he's writing about this, he's talking about the surface of the sculpture and the space around the sculpture in real life. He's not talking about the image. So you're reading this essay and you're thinking about a sculpture in space. You're thinking about a sculpture in space, and he's talking about the way that Giacometti would describe his sculptures being compressed by space, and that's why they look the way they look. So you're thinking about space, and then suddenly on the image is being compressed on the page. So this, your idea of space is like turned from 2 dimensions into 3 dimensions, or 3 dimensions into 2 dimensions at this moment, which is like, for me, like, things like this, for me, can only exist in small books because you can't, I don't think you can sort of, some people can, I'm sure, but I can't maintain the kind of attention that something like this requires in a volume of 50 pages or 200 pages. It's like, this can only happen in a book this small to me. And so he keeps these images small, really compressed on the page.
Did you see the show, Connie?
Yeah, I saw it a couple times. Beautiful. This horizon, again, is like being articulated. So this is like hanging from the line that I don't know if you're aware of, but you are aware of. And then suddenly we get to the first and only color image in the book, and they pop it up, and it makes no sense. It really doesn't make any sense in terms of, like, if you're a designer looking at this, it's like, what the hell? But then if you go back to these images, you start to see that all of these characters' heads, they occupy a band. And that band is occupied by the heads of all the people in this photograph. This is me projecting myself onto this, but this is what I'm seeing. You turn the page back to black and white, and again, the image like shifts. And it's like very hard to understand exactly, like, there's the bottom, the top, they don't align to anything, not to this image, not to the text. Can't figure out why. And then it drops down, the next image drops down to the horizon line. Fits perfectly with the last page of the text. And so you start to see this kind of like, from here, it starts to sort of descend. Which is so beautiful. And then the book ends with like just the checklist and the colophon.
Now I want to ask Charlie about that book. David, what are we out? Are we like hard out? What's your timing here? What's the next thing? What's that? Okay. What's the time? We got 3 minutes to talk about the book that we made. 3 minutes. Here we go.
Good job. You said that's what you would do.
So we made this book. It was of, I would say, the important. Let's just get straight to fun facts about the book. The book has sort of three bodies of work. It has discrete sculptures. It has one work called the index piece, which is made up of multiple small sculptures, and then it has works on paper, which I hadn't shown for like maybe over 15 years, and they were drawings sort of more from my archive. So, and then it has a really great essay by Alex Bacon. But I wanted you to talk about why we chose to represent those three bodies of work in the book in a different fashion from one another.
Yeah, okay,
in
really
1 minute.
really fast. To me, it was about discretion. It was about, so the first body of work are discrete sculptures, and they are tip-ons into the book. They're printed on separate paper, glued in.
So they're objects. I mean,
they're objects. They have a front and a back, which in a traditional book format, like, you know, every time you come across, other than the structure of the book, which has a front and a back, and a direction, each moment in the book that there is a front, its back becomes a front. So you're always sort of moving through backs and fronts. Nothing is sort of locked. With a tip-on, there is a back to the tip-on that is locked. Like, so there's a quite distinct thing about a tip-on spatially that creates this kind of discretion. Like those pieces are discrete. They have a front and a back. The index we chose not to make as tip-ons because there is no discretion. There are all these sculptures that are meant to be together.
yeah.
And so all of those images are printed on the page of the book, and
But
there's no discretion in relation to the tip-ons.
I feel like
Sorry.
one decision between like the sculptures that say they're more finished sculptures being tipped in, is that I think it does slow down. You're looking, there's a certain delicacy that you have to leaf through those pages. So I think there's a different kind of discrete focus through that section. And then the smaller sculptures that make up the index, which are a part of this big thing, they're a sequence of objects. And in the book, they really read and run like a sequence of images, and they're square, right? If I'm not mistaken, which was your introduction, which you suggested to me.
Time is passing.
We should have made our introductions so much shorter.
Stupid. There's so many things to talk about with this little book. It is an incredible little book. Not because of the design. The design is really good, but the way that book talks about Ricky's work, Ricky's got also really unique sensitivity to small things. Like, he makes beautiful small sculptures. He makes big sculptures too, but he's got a real adeptness with small objects. And the book to me is like I don't know, it's one of the most successful books I've worked on, I think, in terms of like really capturing something about a body of work. Super proud of it. I highly recommend everyone go buy it. It's really
I love you, man. I mean, if you want to.
David Kordansky's booth has it.
It's just down the corner. So if you want to talk about this book, if you want to buy this book that we haven't talked about in an hour, you're welcome to. I wanted to shout out thanks to Maya, who is here and is running this fair now. But Maya is the editor and sort of, harassed a lot of people to get this book made. So thank you.
Got this book made.
And Tony from Echelon is here, who, again, you probably own dozens, if not hundreds of books that Tony has corrected the color and made look beautiful. So thank you guys, because you're like the extended part of this team that made it fun and a successful thing.
And you'll take questions outside?
Questions on the street? We'll do whatever. Wait, thank you, David, for inviting us, too. Thank you, man.
We'll start up the Gary, Indiana event in a few minutes.